I'm grateful to be here today. There was a time when sitting down to share this story would have filled me with terror, but that's no longer the case. Fear doesn't control my life anymore, and that transformation is part of what I want to talk about. I need to start with my early life, because without that context, you won't have a true measure of what happened later. My childhood was filled with chaos and incredibly difficult experience. I was abused by a close male family friend for several years. The abuse was comprehensive, sexual, physical, and spiritual. He would threaten me constantly, saying that if I told anyone, he would blow up our house and that everything happening was my fault, that I was being punished certain things. I was so confused about what he meant. The psychological manipulation was as damaging as anything physical. Then something significant happened during a scout camp. We went up one of those canyons that narrow into nothing, where you can look up and see walls 200 feet high. They're beautiful, but dangerous place. I was with the scoutmaster and 5 other kids when a voice spoke to me clearly. It said I needed to run to a specific tree I could see, and that I couldn't wait. The voice told me I couldn't warn the others until I reached that tree. It was such a pure voice, sweet and unmistakable, and I knew exactly who was speaking to me. It wasn't booming or dramatic, just clear and certain. I picked up the small child behind me and moved him to the other side of me in that narrow pass. Then I ran to that tree. The moment I reached it, I heard a sound like a whistle, then like a freight train approached. Wind started blowing with the force of a hurricane. Then the water came, massive and filled with boulders and debris. I had climbed high on the bank, where it widened out slightly. There was one tree sticking out there, and the voice had told me what to do. I wrapped my legs around that tree. Then I saw a child shoot out of the rushing water, heading straight toward me. I was screaming for him to reach for my hand, to grab hold of me. The noise was so loud, deafening. I saw his eyes as he went past. I missed him by about 2.5 feet. Then he went under the water with a gurgling sound, and I knew he was gone. Another child came rushing toward me, and I screamed even harder, telling him to swim, to reach out. Child after child came past me like that. The last child who came by, I screamed at him with everything I had. I went out as far as I possibly could on that tree while holding on, and he came by, and I looked directly into his eyes, just like I'm looking at you right now. I had almost touched his hand, and he was looking back. I knew I was watching him die, and then he swept past me. Then the scoutmaster came by. He was a big guy, and when he got to me, he could barely hold on. I managed to grab him and throw him into the tree. He was completely spent, so I tied him to the tree with my belt because he couldn't stay there on his own. The water went down as fast as it had risen. I ran out to get help, and as I was going, there was a boot sticking out of the ground. I thought it was just a boot lying there. I went to grab it, and there was a foot inside it. Everything else was buried under dirt and mud. I went down further, and I could see some fingers protruding from the debris. The trauma was overwhelming. So I had witnessed all these miracles, heard that divine voice, but I could do nothing to save those children. I got nothing. I saved only one out of all of them. I could never figure out why God was there, but let this happen, especially to me. They gave me a medal afterward. I took that medal home and pounded it into oblivion, burned it, and threw it away. Who gets a medal for what? People die. Why would anyone give me a medal for that? I buried that experience so deeply, I didn't remember it for a long time. I just wouldn't deal with it. Didn't want to face things like that. Kept happening throughout I would experience these miracles, these moments where I knew God was present. I got married and had 2 wives, and both of them were killed. I have 5 amazing children who had to go through absolute hell with me. I experienced these unbelievable things that proved God existed, but then I had such traumatic experiences that I thought either I didn't deserve good things, or I wasn't worth saving, or I was too foolish to understand what was happening. I became lost. I don't know if bitter is the right word, but definitely lost. I'm 65 years old now. I'll be 65 on the 8th month. I got into drugs really late in life, around 45 or 50, after my wives were taken and I was on my own. Being a single man in the church didn't make sense anymore. None of it worked for me. I was a landscape, an excellent designer. I had all the toys you could imagine. Huge house, Corvette, boat, everything that society says should make you happy. None of that brought me any real happiness or peace. I got into drugs, and it's strange how you start down that path gradually. I was just trying to numb myself. I realize that now. But it spiraled me into such a horrible, horrible place. My parents, my family, everyone tried to get me help, tried to get me into rehabilitation programs. I'd be clean for a couple of years, and then somehow I would get pulled back in. Each time you go back, you go in faster and deeper, and you're worse off than before. I reached a point where I had lost everything. All my money was gone. I was living with my sister Sharon and her husband Michael again. My poor sister got stuck with me, and I was the best liar on the planet. I could sell ice cubes to someone living in Alaska. I stole from them constantly. I stole guns. I stole family heirlooms. I did that to everybody. My kids all called me Marcus because I wasn't a father to them. I didn't deserve to be called Dad. They called me Marcus. Nobody wanted to see me coming because they knew I was going to take something. I was going to lie to them. Just looking at who I was and what I had become was devastating. Then came what I call my destiny moment with the stoplight. They put a new traffic signal where I drove home, and it was one of those where you had to stop before turning, then wait until it went green. You couldn't just go right through like you used to. But not me. I went right through it. I got pulled over, and I tried to lie my way out of it. But by that time, I had about 25 warrants, bench warrants, and various charges. Nothing violent, mostly drug paraphernalia and just stupid things. I didn't have a driver's license for about 15 years. I just kept getting tickets on top of ticket. It got to be thousands and thousands of dollars in fines and warrants. Eventually, it got to where I was not bailable. They were going to make me deal with all of it because there were so many charges. My drug debt was about $3,000 a month at minimum. I was stealing and committing fraud to pay for that. When I got taken to jail, on the first day, my blood pressure was so high that they actually sent me to the real hospital because it was so elevated. They were worried something would happen. On the way back, 2 kids were my guards, or jailers, the ones who took me, and they were flirting with each other. I got out of the van in the dark, and I tripped over a curb. I was shackled at my waist, connected to my wrists, and then my feet. So I had no way of catching myself. I just had to turn and hit the curb with my back. I was laying there, and another guard coming in for his shift picked me up and took me inside. Sharp tingles shot up and down my back. After that, I couldn't walk. My legs would give out. Everyone thought I was faking something or that it was just drug withdrawal. They knew I was on drugs, so they assumed a lot of it was withdrawing. I had just gotten back from the hospital, so they said I wasn't going again. I don't want to get into too much detail about how horrible jail is, but what you think it is, it's not. It's as bad as any jail you see in a foreign country. You get no help whatsoever. None. I was black and blue from my shoulder blades all the way down to my feet, as black get. I had this big open sore, and they wouldn't even look at it. You had to fill out this form, this kite thing, just to have them look. Every morning, someone would come in and ask about physical trauma or medical issues, and if you didn't get there in time, they would just walk out. I had to fill out the form, right? Well, they had lost my glasses at the hospital, so I couldn't see to fill it out properly. I tried to fill it out and went to hand it to a woman one day, and she said it wasn't right. She tore it up and threw it in my face. I was in excruciating pain. I didn't know at the time, but I know now that I had suffered a heart attack. I couldn't walk. I had walked into the jail, but now I needed a wheelchair for them to get me around. I was sick. I was withdrawing. There's no question about that. I was throwing up this black bile, and I had to crawl to the bath. After being in there about 30 days trying to get help, nobody would look at me. Nobody would help me because I couldn't fill that form out right. They would just say, that's not their problem. My family would come and try to help, but staff would tell them I didn't want to see them because I couldn't physically get to the visitation window. They said I rejected their visits, which was completely untrue. I was suffering terribly. I had done a lot of things, so I deserved to be in jail. I understood that, but I didn't think I deserved to die in jail. After being in there about 30 days or so, I finally got to a point where I was so upset and hurting so badly. If I stood up, I would pass out. The crazy thing is, the only compassion I got in there was from the other inmate. The food, you can't tell what you're eating. They have to tell you what it is. My bunkmate's job in the cafeteria was to cut the maggots out of the potatoes, and then we ate them. That was his actual job. I got food poisoning, so if I smelled food coming, I would throw up. I lost 40 to 45 pounds in there. I could not eat, couldn't do it. The food was so awful. I finally got to where I was so weak, and I told one of the guards, give me a bullet or get me help. Instead of getting me any kind of medical help, they put me in what they call the nut house, the psychiatric unit in the jail. You don't ever want to be in that part, trust. When they put you in the intake of that unit, there were a whole bunch of guards and nurses there. You get stripped completely naked. They do the cavity searches, all those degrading things. That's when they saw my open wound, that I couldn't walk, the big oozing sores. You're naked standing there. One guy said maybe they needed to do something about this, but it was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and a nurse said there was no doctor there, they couldn't do anything. It would have to wait until morning. They just threw me in there. It's about an 8x8 cell with a metal bed, freezing cold. There are no blankets. You get this canvas thing like old-time tents were made out of that. Gives you no warmth, and it's so rough you don't want it touching you. That's all you have. Then you get bread and water 3 times a day. They're basically just punishing you so you'll never say you have anything mental. Again, so they don't have to deal with you, best I can figure. I'm sitting in there naked, freezing, sitting on this cold slab and thinking, is this what I have become? Is this what I am? I had been given so many wonderful things in my life, and this is what I had made of myself. I was so mentally destroyed, just completely broken. I had no one to help me. My family would have helped me, but they couldn't even get to me. Their best solution for me was to leave me in jail, where at least they knew I was safe, they thought. That's what I needed. That's how bad off I really was. If anybody had to bet on whether I would ever be off drugs when I got out of jail, if I ever got out, not one person would have said yes. That's how bad I was. They had all tried many times. Rehabilitation, everything they possibly could. It got so bad that I prayed. I prayed and I said, God, you owe me nothing at all. I mocked you basically my whole life. I had everything. I saw you work in my life. You owe me nothing. But please, please, just let me die. This is hell. Hell cannot be worse than this. Please, just let me die. I tried to position myself to drown in that square metal toilet, but my head wouldn't go in that round opening to even accomplish that. I couldn't even get that done. I don't know how long I prayed for. I was freezing and sick beyond description. I'm praying, and I can't get any help. Have you ever been in a place where no man can help you, where there is nobody at all who can help you? I had done it to myself. I had ruined my life. I had ruined every person who would have loved to help me. I had made it impossible for anyone to reach. I hated myself. I wanted nothing to do with myself. I'm sitting there thinking, how did you let this happen? How did you go from having so much to this? I was physically, mentally, and spiritually tormented, completely tormented. I could have had it so much different, but I didn't. I'm sitting there praying and praying and praying. All of a sudden, my father is there. My father had been dead for 7 years. He's right in my face, just inches away, as close as you are to me now. He tells me, you look terrible, Mark. You really look awful. He said my mother was waiting outside, but she couldn't even stand to come in and see me because I looked so terrible. She was also dead. He said, we worked really, really hard to get you in here. Honestly, I was angry. I was thinking, can't you see I'm on death's doorstep? And he's telling me they worked really, really hard to get me in here. He said, we tried so many ways to help. All of us did. We did everything we could to help you figure out your addiction and your life, and you wouldn't accept it. You wouldn't do it. There was nothing you would take. He said, this is kind of it. This is your choice. I'm here because I love you. I know you can do this. I know you're better than this, that you were made to be much more than this. I know you can do this. He said, I will leave now, but you can get better. As he left, I sat there praying again to die because I was so sick and so destroyed. Then I got hit with a beam of light that was like a pointer, like a laser light. I looked, and it hit me right on the head. It was hot and getting hotter, like it was going to burn me. As I looked at it, before long, Christ was there, Christ himself, not in some vision, not in some dream. The Lord himself was right there, this close to my face, looking at me with those eyes that just go right through you. I knew it was Christ, and I said, why would you come for a piece of garbage like me? Why would you come here for me? He said, Marcus, I've been here the whole time. I've just been waiting for you to accept me and look to me, and for you to fulfill what I know you can be and what I built you to be. I made you. I know who you are. I know what you're meant to do, and I love you. I always have loved you. He said, I know things look really terrible right now. I know you have no hope. I was completely hopeless. He said, you don't think you're worth anything, but I know what you're meant to do. I knew you would have these low points. I sent you angel. I sent you the very best to be around you when you were weak, to carry you so you could make it to where you are now, at least free of the drug. By then I was on my knees and I was just grabbing his ankles. I could see the wounds in his feet. I said, I'm too far gone. I'm too destroyed. You can't save me. He said, I know what you've done. He said, I know why you did what you did. He said, you can be saved through me, and I know you can do this, but it's your choice. You can choose to have what you have and live what you're living, or you can ask for help, and you can be one with me. Together we can make your life the most unbelievable thing that you can't even imagine what that would be. I told him, I'm done. I won't do another drug. I'm finished. I don't want to be this. I know I can be better. Then I caught myself and I said, wait, Lord, I'm promising you something I don't know that I can promise because I really have tried to beat this addiction and I don't seem to be able to do it. I have tried. He said, I understand. He said, you're going to have to do it my way this time, not your way. You're going to have to do it with me. He said, you can't do it the normal Marcus way, where you tell everybody what they want to hear, then smooth them over. and go do whatever you want. That's not going to work. He said, you're going to have to ask for my help. Then he said, you and I together can defeat this and make you whole. He said, but you do what I demand. He said, I don't expect you to be perfect. He said, I built you. I know you. You will never be perfect one day in your life. He said, I don't expect perfection. What I expect you to do is try, and you try with all you are. When that's more than you can handle, you ask, and I will make up the difference. He told me to get up, to ride. I was looking at his eyes. They're the most incredible eyes that see right through you. To me they were blue, but he was in his robe, like you would imagine. He was smiling the whole time. Then comes the most amazing part. If you think it could be greater than that, he took his hand and he put it inside my body, not over my heart like you do for the Pledge of Allegiance. He grabbed my heart inside my body, grabbed it, and I'm thinking, Lord, you realize my heart couldn't beat with you holding it like that. He grabbed it and said, your heart's broken. I thought he meant broken heart, contrite spirit kind of thing. He said, no, your heart's actually broken physically. He said, you've also had a change of heart. He said, stand up. He said, your sins are forgiven. That was so amazing to me that he would say that and knew that I was truly done. He said, sin no more. Go forth and do good, and you ask, and it will be you and I together from now on. He said, remember that. He said, I will see you again shortly, and I will prepare your path. Just have faith and ask, and I will prepare your way. Then he took his hand out of my heart. The same way he came in, he went out. To me, it was only moments later that a doctor came in. It was morning. The doctor came in, and he saw my wounds, my massive bruise, the big open sores. He looked at me and said, what happened to you? Who beat you? I said, nobody beat me. I fell, but they wouldn't give me help. I told him everything. He looked at the nurse and said, a lot of profanity. This is not how it's supposed to work. How could you ignore all of this? They took my blood sugar, and it was so high, it wouldn't even read, which means it was over 500. I didn't know I was diabetic. My blood pressure was extremely low, like 70/40. He said I needed to go to the hospital immediately, and not by the usual transport. I needed to go by ambulance, and I needed to go now. You see different doctors in jail. It's the only time I saw that particular doctor. I don't even know who he was, but he sent me back to the hospital. When I got there, I was still shackled to everything. They cut all my clothes off. I had IVs in my knees, my arms, everywhere. There were all these people running around doing tests. There was a small Asian doctor there who could hear the radio because the guards were right there with me the whole time. I was still shackled to the gurney. The guy from the jail was on the radio saying, when is he coming back? Someone responded saying they thought the doctors were about done with me. She got on that radio and just tore into him. She said, he's at death's door. When you brought him here, he became mine. I will tell you when he's coming back, and it won't be soon. Tell your people to take the handcuffs off. Where's he going? He can't even walk. He's not going anywhere. Tell them to go sit in the corner and be quiet. They did all that. I don't know everything they found. I know they did something with my back, and I needed to have procedures done. I was taken to intensive care and was there for 4 days. Then in the hospital another couple of days. My family knew nothing because the jail wouldn't tell them. But that saved my life just because I ate real food and was taken care of properly. I think that would have been my last night if the Lord hadn't grabbed my heart and if I hadn't made the decision to change. I actually got better. I went back to jail. I was in jail for a total of 40 days and 40 nights, which is kind of significant, but it wasn't wonderful when I went back there. However, I knew God had me. I no longer cared about the conditions. I knew everything would be okay. I saw my sister Sharon when she came to visit, and we got to talk. The miraculous part about that is the Lord had to touch heart. My family wanted nothing to do with me at that point. The Lord had told me when he was with me. I said, nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's going to believe a word I say. I wouldn't believe me if I were them. They're going to say it's just some story I made up. I don't even dare tell the story. Nobody will believe me, especially my family. He said something I'll never forget. He said, I will tell them. I will be the one. He said, you can't even mess it up. He said, I will tell them that it's true, and they will know. The ones that need to know, I will tell. Those that do not believe or do not hear, it's on them. It's not on you. He said, you'll know when to open your mouth. Somehow my sister knew that I was truly done. They got me an attorney. There was money involved, all kinds of things to get me out. He had to touch the right people, the attorney, the judge, even the prosecutor. I got out. It was a miracle how it happened. All these charges and warrants that I didn't think would ever be resolved were resolved. The judge, prosecutor, and my attorney all knew somehow. My attorney said, I've been told lots of stories. He said, I know when I'm being manipulated, but for whatever reason, I know you're sincere that you're done. I'll do everything I can to help you. He really did, and saved my life. When I was released from jail, who did they release me to? My sister Sharon, the same one. Her and her husband took me back. which was a miracle in itself that they would even consider it. They helped me get all those legal things taken care of. But then a few months after that, I got these really strange, nasty sores on my fingers, just big open wounds. Her husband is a heart surgeon. I called and showed them to him, and he said, "You need to get to the hospital. You have something wrong with your heart." I didn't understand the connection. He's the smartest man I know, truly an amazing spiritual man. It's interesting because he's Catholic and none of those denominational differences mattered. It just mattered how we knew God. How that all developed is amazing. Nothing happens by accident. I went to the hospital and they were going to send me to a dermatologist. I told the nurse my brother-in-law thought it was heart-related and asked them to check. They checked my heart and said I wasn't going anywhere. I ended up needing 6 bypass. I had a hole in my heart and a bad valve. I'd had a heart attack. They didn't even know if my heart was viable enough to survive surgery. The Lord had saved my life again through that doctor recognizing the sign. I was in the hospital getting stable enough for surgery. I'll never forget, as I was going into surgery, I asked the Lord, "Am I going to be okay?" He said, "Yeah, I'll be there. I have everything covered. Don't worry about it. I will be there." It's funny because people say, "You talk to the Lord?" And I say, "Yes, I talk to him like we're talking right now, and I hear him." Ever since that night in jail, I've been able to hear him. I didn't always hear him my whole life. I never heard anything before. I had to do everything myself. I was horrible in so much. He told me he would be there, and he didn't have to say anything more. I remember a male nurse before I went in told me some things and said, "I'll see you when you come out." I said, "Are you sure?" He didn't answer me. Then he did something else and said again, "I'll see you when you come out." I said, "Are you sure?" He didn't answer again. So I was nervous going in, but I went into surgery knowing the Lord had me. I was in surgery for 8.5 hours with 2 different surgeons because my case was so complex. I didn't even know all that. I didn't worry about it because I knew the Lord had me. I didn't have to worry anymore. During surgery, I came out of my body. It's the most surreal thing. You look down and you see this person with his chest completely open with metal instruments holding everything apart. The 2 doctors were saying, "He's in trouble. We need to balloon him." I thought they were going to make me a balloon heart or something. I didn't understand the medical terminology. Then I looked to the right. There was my father again. He looked at me and said, "Get back in there, you fool. Where do you think you're going?" Just like he would have said when he was alive. I get chills thinking about that. He said, "You can go for a while. You can go see your mother, your sister, and others. You need to learn some things, but you have to come back. You have no choice." My kids were in the waiting room. I went through the wall. You just go through wall. I told my kids later where they were sitting. There was a woman in there, and my grandkids were acting up. I told my daughter what book the woman was reading, the character in the book, and what page she was on because I was looking over her shoulder. It freaks them out. They don't even like hearing about it. I saw what was happening there. Then I went back, and what I call my transport came. It was like a bubble just slightly bigger than me that engulfed me. It was the most comfortable thing. I could see all the way around, and I could see up. Before I knew it, I was going fast, shooting upward. Not in a tube, just shooting through blackness toward this bright white light. Then I smacked into a bigger sphere than mine, like a bus. I hit it hard, and I thought, I'm going to get a ticket in heaven. I've gotten tickets everywhere else my whole life. Now I'm getting one in heaven. Then my transport just dissolved, and I was there. The people in that larger sphere, I knew them. What had pulled me up, I could tell there was a higher intelligence, a power guiding me. It was the most amazing feeling. Someone even asked me if I wanted to go dance with her. I said, well, no, I don't think I should. Then my mother was there, my Aunt Lois, who had been crippled my whole life with spinal problems there. She stuck out her arm and said, look, no crutch. She said, let's run. She just took off running and left me behind. Then my sister had to come get me. She said Aunt Lois has a great go button, but not a very good stop button. She took me back to where everyone was gathered. Everyone there doesn't talk like we do. You don't use your mouth. It's like a download directly to your heart, and it's very quick. Then my dog Walter, my lab that I loved so much, came running up to me. I cried for a month when he died. Walter told me he loved me, he'd missed me, that he was my pet and would be my pet forever. He said he couldn't wait for me to get there for real, but I knew I had to go back. He said when I got there permanently, he would find me and be mine forever. He told me I had to make changes or I wouldn't be able to return there. Then he just trotted off. I was amazed by all of that. The streets really are gold. Their gold is perfect, pure gold. The colors are so vivid and intense. The grass, I'm a landscaper and gardener. I was looking at it thinking, who did this? I thought I could be a gardener in heaven, but I'm not that skilled. Even the plants and grass, they smell in a way that gives you life. You take these deep breaths like you do at the dentist to manage discomfort. Here it's feeding you. The plants are feeding you spiritually. Grass is feeding you, and you're trying to breathe in more and more. You can feel from each plant that they're giving you some of their own life force so you can be fed. There's a love transaction happening that's hard to describe. You know you're surrounded by love and loved ones in a way I'd never felt before. I'm walking up what I call the main path, and I see aunts, uncles, but they're all 30 years old. My grandpa looked 30. My grandma looked 30. One grandmother came up to meet me and said, "You've never met me before. I'm your father's mother. I was gone before you were born. I just wanted to meet you." They all told me certain things that I needed to change and that they had faith in me. They knew who I was and that I needed to go back and fulfill the promises I had made before coming to earth. She said, "I looked so much like my father." I said, "Yeah, Dad's pretty good looking, wasn't he?" She said, "Oh, you're quite a character." Then she went off to find my Uncle Ed came riding up on his horse. He was a big guy, kind of like a cowboy character. He hopped off and his horse looked at me and said, "I'm Snap." I was so unused to all this direct communication. My Aunt Thelma was further away and said, "Now, Ed, you know you can't spend much time with him talking. Just tell him what you need to and leave." He said, "I'll take the time I need. You just hold your horse," just like their dynamic when they were alive. They were all 30 years old. When I got back and was recovered, I went to a family reunion, and my cousins were there. I asked them if Uncle Ed had a horse named Snap, and they started crying. They said, "How would you know that? That horse was dead before you were born." Yeah, he had this cantankerous horse grab anybody who tried to ride him besides Uncle Ed, bite them with his teeth, and yank them off the saddle. He wouldn't let anyone else ride him, only Uncle Ed. They said, "How do you know this?" I said, "He's the most arrogant horse I've ever met." They started laughing and said, "Well, you'd have to say that. It's funny how the Lord gives you these details to bring back so people know it's real." I saw so many different people as I walked along. Then it narrowed into a smaller area, and there were these gates, huge gates made of solid gold. I could hear singing, or not so much singing, but classical music like Beethoven playing all the time. Just over the next ridge, I could see things being created, almost like people being sent to earth, though I'm not entirely sure what that was about. As I went to go through those big gates, I saw the Lord standing there again. The Lord's presence is overwhelming. There's a physical presence that's not just spiritual. It's such an intense feeling. I don't have the words to describe what that is. I'm not smart enough to explain it, but it's the most intense feeling of love you've ever experienced in your life. I'm walking through the gates, and he puts his hands out like this to show me his wound. I knew who he was. I was on my knees again, and he said, "Please feel my wound." I was taken back by it. I said, "I don't need to. I know who you are. I don't need to do. I know who you are." He said, "No. Please feel my wound." So I got up, and as soon as I touched the wounds on his hands, I instantly knew the pain and the suffering he had to endure for me, just for me. That time in jail when I couldn't take it 1 second longer, when I was so done, so completely spent, he made me whole. He willingly took all of that for me. I only had to experience it for a few seconds. He said, "I didn't do that to show you my pain. I didn't do that to both." He said, "I did that to show you how much I love you and what I would do for you. What you felt was just a small part of what I experienced when I told you your sins were forgiven, what I took for you, all out of love. Everything that I have is through love. Everything my Father has is from love. Everything that is made whole is by love. There are some things that happened then that I won't share publicly. They're sacred to me. I won't mock God by sharing everything. I'm not saying that because I don't want to share. I'm telling you this because it's so precious and sacred to me. What I saw, what I was given, and things I was shown about coming to earth, and the things I needed to do, things I had promised I would do before I was. He had to show me what I promised to do, what I needed to accomplish. If I didn't do it, nobody else could do it. He had built me and made me specifically to do this. He said, "I know you can do this. I made you to do this and to walk with." Again, he said, "When it's difficult, I don't expect you to be perfect. You won't be perfect. I don't expect you to do any more than what you're capable of. But you and I together have no limit. There is nothing impossible for what you and I together can accomplish. You are who you are alone, but you and I together is not the same person as just you. If there's anything you need to learn, it's that, and to ask. I cannot help you unless you ask. You assume all the time that I'm just going to take care of you or be there for you. Automatic. You need to ask me, and I will be there. I really realize that so I can build a relationship where I actually communicate with him. I spend as much time now when I pray just listening, not saying a word, as I do actually praying and speaking to him. It's changed my life in so many ways. I remember telling him, "Lord, I'm stupid. I'm not intelligent. I can't do what a kindergartner can do. I've done all these horrible things to people I love and ruined so many things that I can't fix. I can't repair this. I've messed it up so badly, and I'm just stupid." He said something I'll never forget. He said, What you think are your strengths, I see as your weaknesses, and what you think are your weaknesses are actually your strength. He said, remember what I told you. You by yourself are limited, but you and I together, nothing is impossible. You will see things. Your brain, what you call stupid, was built specifically so you can hear me, and so you can hear the angels that surround you, the spirits of the earth. You'll hear things with that so-called stupid brain. Never call yourself stupid again. I love you so much. I gave you that unique mind. I built that for you, and I know you. He said, you'll always have the choice between evil and good. Satan also knows who you are. Satan knows what you're about. Satan knows what you mean to me and what you're built for. You will be attacked your whole life. You'll have things that are difficult and things where you're going to need my help. Only through me and us together will you withstand. But I will be there, and I will give you the very best, the elite angels to help you. You'll be surrounded. You'll never have to do it alone. I remember my mother coming and saying, does he have to do this? My father came in right behind her and said, surely we'll be there with him, and of course he'll do this. He promised he would do this. Then I'll never forget my dad asking, why would you want to take that away from him? She said, it's so difficult and hard. I could see why my mother wouldn't have complete faith in me, because I was such a problem. I was difficult. The Lord said, I will be there. Then he laid his hands on my head and said, I'm going to give you the gift of discernment. He said, it's the greatest gift I can give you to take back. He blessed me with discernment that I would see evil where evil was, and it could not hide from me. Part of my calling when I returned was to work against evil on earth. There are other things I won't discuss because I'm always afraid I'll come across as egotistical or holier than thou, and I never mean it to be like that. I know the Lord. It's almost like I told the Lord, you took the worst person to build this mission around, and that's me. You're going to have a lot of work to do because there's me and there's you. You're going to have to be the driver of this bus, every part of it. He said, I love you. Then again he put his hand on my heart, only this time on the outside, and said, I will be there. I will always be there. Then he said, you need to go now. But always remember the love you felt here, and it can be there on earth if you ask. It will be there. I walked down to where my transport was, and my mother was there with infant. It's the only time I saw any infants or babies. Everybody else was around 30 years old. There were about 20 infants. Baby, and my mom wasn't known for being a great babysitter. My grandma was there, my Aunt Lois, sister were there. I said, what are you guys doing with these babies? My mom said, these are very close relations of ours whose mothers miscarried. They're waiting here for their mothers to arrive, and they won't age a single day until their mothers get here to raise them. I knew that had to be important for her to show me. I've really understood since then. I've told many women about it. I just say it, and they'll break down crying and say, I always thought I was wicked or did something wrong to have that happen. It's totally the opposite, because those children didn't even have to come to earth at all. They were so perfect that they weren't required to be tested in mortality. But that mother had to be perfect to carry them in her womb. Her heart had to be perfect. It actually was a great gift from God to allow them to be conceived. They earned it. Some gifts are given from God, but many things you earn, you bank in heaven. I tell my sister all the time, you're banking that in heaven. It's almost like God has to give you blessings because you've done all these wonderful things. When you need help, you take that out of your deposit of blessings you've accumulated. That's why he can bless you in those moments. I knew that message was very important. Then my mom said, you need to go now. You can't wait any longer. There are many other things up there that if we had all day, I could tell you. When I tell you it's all a download, I realize we only have the capacity to understand what God gives, and he has to simplify it for us. I even told that to the Lord when he was giving it to me, because it's nothing communicated by mouth when you're there. When you come back and tell people, you have to speak truth. You've been taught your whole life to manipulate with your word, to control what you share. You cannot do that there. You have to say exactly what you mean, and they receive exactly what you mean. It can only be truth. He told me never lie, not even a small white lie to help someone. A lie will fall apart always, every time. Always build with truth. Figure out a way to say it that is positive and truthful, but never a lie. I realized I get these downloads all the time since then. My mom said, you can't wait any longer. You have to go back now. I said, are you going to ride with me? She said, no, I can't ride with you, but I'll meet you there. Then I was engulfed by that same transport. Now I'm going back to Earth. As I'm descending back to Earth, it's getting heavier. I'm feeling heavier and colder and colder. My mom and Aunt Lois said, we'll be there for you. It's going to be painful, and it will hurt. You'll wake up, but we'll be there with you. As I got back to my body, I got out of the transport, and my mom was there. The last thing my mom told me was, learn to enjoy physical touch. You won't have that for a long time in heaven, So enjoy physical touch on earth. Then she said, and enjoy pain. That took me a long time to understand what she meant. I realized that through pain and refinement is how we find God in many ways and find ourselves. I finally understood what she meant by that. She said, we'll be there with you. Then my dad was standing there and said, you can't wait any longer. You have to get in now. There were two beings standing there just watching over my body. I'm not entirely sure who they were, but they were watching over me carefully. He said, you can't. You have to get in now. I went to jump back in my body, but how do you get back? I'd never done that. Then I was in my body and I'm looking up. I could see my dad. The two doctors who were there had been trying for over 40 minutes to get me off the bypass machine. They had tried several times. In fact, one of the doctors came to my house after I recovered. He came to see me and said, I need to know what happened. He said, I know what death is. I know what death looks. You were gray. You were ashen. You were dead. He said, we didn't save you. What happened? I'm a smart aleck. So I just said, well, hell wouldn't take me and God didn't want me, so I had to come back. But then I said, I know you saved my life and I owe you a lot. I had things I needed to accomplish and I had to come back. He said, well, I have to believe you because we didn't do it. I even told him something about his father then that only he knew, and he was so shocked he cried. He said, I believe everything you said because there's no other explanation. You were just there on that table. You were just back somehow. When I got back in my body, I'll never forget this. I'll never forget my dad's fingers. He went to my heart and he went like this, made a motion, and my heart went boom. Then I woke up in intensive care. It's funny because when I woke up in intensive care, I couldn't wait to tell my sister Sharon about it. I had to get it out as soon as I could. I didn't want to forget anything. I would talk to my mom and my aunt and my sister who had passed, and they would respond. I'll never forget because they said they would be there for the pain. I said, my neck and my back hurt so bad. My mom said to me, I will wipe your brow and I'll rub your neck so you feel better. I couldn't really feel it physically, but everything got better. When she told me that, she said, you will get better, and the Lord will bless you to do those things you need to do. I would see them, and they would be there. The nurses would come in and say, who are you talking to? I would say, my mom. They'd say, wasn't she dead? I'd say, yeah, but to me that's normal now. We could be here forever because since then, things have happened where I've been told to go do things for people that only from God could these gifts be given. It's for people who need the other side to tell them things or give them help or just give them encouragement. There is hope. I can promise everyone out there is a God and He knows you and He cares. If you just ask, but you have to ask, you'll find those things. But you have to be sincere and you also have to be trying to live a good life. He can't help a person who isn't trying. Doesn't mean you need to be perfect. If I'm not an example that anyone can be brought back from the edge of hell because that's where I was, to be whole and to be given wonderful gifts, then I don't know what example could work. If you're in addiction, if you're in pain, if you're suffering, it doesn't matter what your situation. He'll take that burden for you and turn it into wonderful things that you cannot even imagine. What He has done for me with my family, my kids, I've been able to repair those relationships. They call me Dad now, which is a miracle that is worth everything that I went through. What a gift from the Lord. Those things are what matter. Money, I don't care about money or material things anymore. I really don't. Could care less about toys. I care more that I have peace and that the Lord can walk hand in hand with me, and it's okay. I can be a tool for Him. And that's what matters. It's never ending. I realized that was just the start of what I was meant to do, and the miracles just keep coming. It's just unbelievable what has been given to me, and I can't thank the Lord enough. All you have to do is decide who you're going to follow, who you're going to let drive your bus. I have to keep it very simple because I'm a simple person. He'll pour out the host of heaven. He'll pour out all the blessings of heaven for you if you just try, and you try every day. That's all He asked. Even how He made it so people can believe my story. It's shocking to me how I've been made better. That's why I share my story. It's not for anything more than to give hope and to testify that there is a God, and He loves you, and He knows your name. He knows you and knows what you need. All you need to do is ask and try, and you'll find unbelievable gifts waiting for you. If this helps one person, I would be absolutely thrilled. Let me tell you one story really quickly about how this works in my life now. I was going home one day, and I was tired, overwhelmed, wanted to go home and go to bed. The Lord spoke to me and said, you need to go to the dollar store. He said, when you get to the dollar store, you'll know what to do. I said, okay, whatever. Usually I would have asked what for or questioned, but I said, okay, but I didn't go. I went home and got in my bed, and I'm laying there when it felt like an earthquake shook my bed. It almost rolled me over. He said, did you not hear me? I said, yeah, I'm sorry. I heard him. I threw my clothes on. The dollar store was only 2 minutes down the road. I went down there and he said, He's not going to be in the front of the store. He's back in the wooded area. I knew what that meant. It's where drug deals happen. I've been there before. That's where dangerous things happen. I said, I'm not going back there. Then I remembered that earthquake feeling in my bed, and I said, No, I'm sorry. He told me to take $20. He said the person isn't going to be out there asking for anything. You'll know when you see him, and you'll know what to do. I went back there, and he was in his sleeping bag. I called him by name. It just came out. He said yes, and he came. He said, Who are you? Can I help you? I said, Yes, the Lord sent me. The Lord sent me to you, and I had to come right now. I don't know why, but he told me to come, and I came. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not better looking or a beautiful woman or something that might be more pleasing to you, but the Lord sent me. He just came up and wrapped his arms around me and started sobbing and crying. He said, I had just prayed to the Lord. He told me, I just needed to know you're there. Just need to know you exist. That's all I need to know, and I'll keep fighting. If not, I am done. I'm ending it. He pulled his jacket back, and he had a pistol in his waistband. It was a revolver. He pulled it out and opened it up, and there was one bullet in. He said, This was for me. This was mine, and I was done. This was it tonight. My family hates me. Everyone hates me. I have no hope. I just needed to know God was there. Not only that, you called me by my name. I don't know who you are. The Lord knows your name. The Lord knows who you are, and he knows your struggle. I said, Can I please have your bullet? I have his bullet in my house to this day. I gave him what I knew he needed to hear. I said, If you go halfway with your parents and even the brother that you think hates you and will do nothing for you. He said, I didn't tell you I had a brother. I said, The Lord doesn't need you to tell me. I said, Just put yourself in his shoes. You've hurt him. You need to try. If you could just be honest, even if it's not the answer they want to hear, if you would just be honest with them and try to meet them halfway, your life will change. I said, Here's $20. He said, Did the Lord give you that? I said, Yeah, in a way. But he told me to give it to you. He was so overwhelmed. He got on his knees and was going to try to kiss my feet. I said, I'm not God. I'm just a messenger. I said, I've been where you are. I promise you, you can change, and you can be so much more. You are so much more than you think you are. Promise me you'll try? He said, I have to. I know there's a God now. He expects me to try. I said, Yep, you're absolutely right. I drive by every once in a while, and he waves me down on the road and tells progress. It's not perfect. He even had a girlfriend and told her he couldn't date her until she was off drugs because he got off drugs the next day. Count said, I'm in a little halfway house that's mine. And it's not perfect, but I'm getting better. Even with my difficult brother, so much. Everything you said has come true, and I think. Then he asked, Where do you preach? I said, I'm not a preacher. I'm just like you, just a guy. I said, I think you should try to find God. I think you owe it to him to find him, and he'll change your life. I've seen him 3 or 4 times since then, and you can just tell by his countenance and how he carries himself. He's so much better. It made me realize that when God calls, you don't go to bed. You go. I could tell you so many stories that are amazing like that, but they all reinforce that all you have to do is give a little of yourself. If you can just hear him, it will change your life. The Lord has perfect timing, and you have to be able to listen. That's why you have to have that open relationship so you can hear him. It will only work when he's prepared the way. That's why you have to have that relationship with him. Judge not that you be not judged. There are so many principles I could discuss, and I don't want to sound like a know-it-all. I don't want to ever sound egotistical. I know what I was and what I am. Anything that is good in me, my part is minuscule, but the Lord's part is immense. I pray for everyone. I can see out there how many people are hopeless and wandering and looking. I just pray and promise you, if you'll just put in effort to find God, he'll find you back. He found me in a jail cell trying to kill myself using a metal toilet. He'll come to where you are. I promise you that. I hope that helps.